Hello and welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Bethel and I just started this thing called Sew with KIZAJ. So it's a lesson plan where I actually teach you how to sew step by step right from the basics. And this is lesson 1. I am so obsessed. I want to jump you. If you missed the first video talking about like the course plan, I'll go watch it after this or like right now, so that way you know what lesson come after this and what to expect from this particular course I have outlined for you guys. Sewing, when it comes to sewing, there's different tools. I feel like every single person sews different. It's the same outcome, yeah, but everybody sews different. So I'm going to show you the tools I actually use. By the way, before this video goes further, you might notice that in my videos I dress really casual, so that's how I sew. So I'm going to like keep it real and not try to like over makeup or like wear some fancy blouse. No, this is how I actually sew. So kind of get used to me using casual, because I've seen other videos and they actually look, you know, good. I don't sew like that, so nah, it's not gonna work for me. Back to the main video. Sorry for digressing. So like I said, everybody has different things they sew with. Everybody prefers some stuff, but there's some basic things that everybody who starts to sew always uses along the line. Those are the things you're actually going to use. I'm going to show you those basic stuff. I'm going to keep it really basic, so that way you're not actually buying things you don't need, because you're just starting out. You want to save your money more for things like the fabric you use than for things you actually wouldn't use. So let's get started. So the first and most important thing you're going to need is a sewing machine. This is probably going to be the most expensive thing. Fabric is the most expensive, but a sewing machine is the most important thing you need. In the United States, I don't know about other countries, I'm thinking the prices would be the same in other countries, but in the United States you can get like a sewing machine as good as this one for little as $100. I believe this was 100 to 160. I'm not sure, but Amazon's your best bet. You can literally sit at home, buy sewing machines on Amazon and just wait for it to come in. You don't have to leave your house to get a sewing machine. So if you don't have that amount just yet, I would say save, so that way you can buy a sewing machine. Make sure the sewing machine actually looks like this and not all those baby sewing machine or hand sewing machines. If you're starting this, you want to start for real. So make sure your sewing machine looks like an actual sewing machine. So this is the first and most important tool you're going to need. The next video is going to talk about how to thread this and how to use this to sew. There are a lot of sewing tools people use, but these are the basics. So I'm going to go ahead and start from the thread. So personally, I like to use all-purpose threads for my machine because that's what works perfect. All-purpose threads always do it nice for me, and they do not snap when sewing or like after the cloth is loose. They're really strong. You can get these at Joann's, Hobby Lobby, even Walmart. Just make sure it's all-purpose thread and not, because there are specific threads for like different kinds of machine. Make sure it's all-purpose and you wouldn't go wrong with all-purpose thread. The next thing is going to be a hand needle. So a hand needle allows you to make hand stitches. For example, you're going to need to hem some things by hand, hence the hand needle is important. This one I've had for like close to 4 years and I still have like 4 in the pack. Make sure you buy one that has different sizes and also different sizes of eye hole. Personally, I don't like this one because the eye hole is very small, but make sure it's something that's not going to like stress you to put the needle inside. Make sure it's not too small and make sure it's not too big. So I don't know if you can see this one, but you want it to be slightly bigger than this. I don't have an issue getting the needle into this, but some people have bad eyesight. So make sure it's not too big, but slightly bigger than this. For measurement, on this table, I have 3 different things I use for measurement. The first one is my measuring tape. This is what I use to take measurement of the client or the person I'm sewing for. This is also what I use to transfer that measurement to the garment. So this one is very essential. I use the inch part of this, so that is what I'm also going to be using for all my tutorials. I'm using the inch part, which is the one with like the bigger numbers. The one behind, I think it's in centimeters. I believe it in centimeters, but I never actually use this. Most people I know don't use this. It's usually used like by a particular country, which I don't use it, so I really don't care who uses it. But this is the one I use, and this is the one that's very most common within tailors. The next thing I have is a pink ruler. So this is a 16, again, this is in inches. This is a 16-inch metric ruler. What's very important that I like about this ruler is that it's see-through. Because it's see-through, you can easily mark measurements. This pink ruler is useful if you're taking measurements in 8s. if you're taking measurements in 0.8, because if you look at it very closely, there are tiny boxes in between. So at some point, those measurements are going to make sense when we start making patterns. But with freehand, this is not so important. I just like it because it's good for angles, like 90-degree angles, and it's also see-through. So that way you can see the measurement underneath. So that's why I like this ruler. I barely use it except I'm working with patterns, but it does come in handy, and it's also good to draw a straight line, you know, when you don't want to bring out the big ruler. So now talking about the big ruler, this one I love first off because it's 36 inches, which is a yard. So it's very easy to like measure stuff out and then just cut it out at a yard. I also like this one because of the length. It's easy to like make straight lines that are very long. For example, when cutting 6-piece skirts, this is the ruler I use because you need that line to like literally be straight and very long. So this comes in really handy then. That's basically the only two things I use it for. But eventually we're going to see if we have more uses for it. But it's very, very good to have around. Drawing straight lines, making sure stuff is straight, and cutting out in yards, this is perfect. Cutting. When it comes to cutting, the most important thing I'll tell you is keep your fabric scissors as your fabric scissors. Make sure nobody in your house is using it to cut paper, to use in the kitchen. Make your fabric scissors your fabric scissors. As a matter of fact, boom. See? Mine says fabric only. You can get this. I got this at Juwan's. It came along with these baby scissors. So get these so that way you don't have to like make a label for it. It already says here fabric scissors, so that way you're reminded, and other people are reminded too. Because if you use fabric scissors for other stuff, it ends up being worn out. One, it doesn't cut as you want it to be. You really want your lines to be crisp when cutting to avoid fray when sewing and other things, which you're going to understand as you sew. But make sure your fabric scissors stays as your fabric scissors. Now, if you want to have another scissors that you're going to like use for everything else, that's totally up to you. But always make sure your fabric scissors is your fabric scissors. So now this next baby scissors, this one is what we use to like cut out frayed thread. For example, I'm sewing on the sewing machine and then I bring out the thing. This is what I'm going to use to cut out the thread. It comes in very handy for like tiny threads. Basically cutting off thread, that's the only thing I use this for. And maybe making notches. Now I see the tip of this for making notches. So for cutting threads, this comes in handy. So I have a different type on the table. This is the one I used to use. As you can see, it's all rusted, but I still love this one. So this one is another variation of this. It could come like looking like this or looking like this. Basically, it's a tiny scissors that's almost like a razor to cut the threads off. So now, while we're still talking about cutting, this is called a seam ripper. This is a saving grace. When I say this thing is a saving grace, when I first started to learn to sew, I did not know this existed. I just knew of this when I was doing my internship. So a seam ripper saves life, literally, because in the past, I used to use razors to cut. That messed up fabrics, messed up the thread, messed up everything. But with seam rippers, you can literally just look at what you're doing and go repeat. Like it has this pointed thing and it has a razor like thing here, making it so easy. Now there are different sizes, but I chose to buy the small one because it's the cheapest, and I've broken like 2 seam rippers in the past because of like, so I just rather buy the cheap one that, you know, I can break and buy another one, because the last one I broke was actually the big one. So use your discretion. You can buy like the really big ones, or you can buy the small ones. The small ones work perfectly for me. The small ones actually last longer for me than the big ones. So hence the small one. But if you want to buy the big one, totally fine. Again, do you, but just make sure you're getting the seam ripper. You really need a seam ripper, especially with the fact that you're going to be making mistakes as you sew. This is going to be your best friend. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the office pin. So this right here, some people call it the office pin, people call it dressmaker's pin, some people call it sewing pin. So this pin comes in different variations. It's basically used to hold 2 pieces of fabric together for the purpose of marking, or to hold it together to sew, or to hold it together to hand stitch. Anything is basically used to hold 2 pieces of fabric together. It comes in really handy. Some people use the sewing clips instead of this, but personally I prefer to use this because they're very workable, they're very easy to use. There are different variations again of the safety pin. When I was learning to sew in Nigeria, I did not know that this was part of the types of safety pin, because the ones we used back then did not have this ball thing. It was just like the pin with like a flat head. I don't know if I have any around. I'll show you, or maybe I'll just Google it and show you. But that was what we used. I want to say these ones are really good, but in my experience, I've seen other ones. They're just slightly more expensive, but they're like flat heads, because Those ones, you just put in the clothes. It's so easy to go under the machine. You can put it very close to the needle and it's not going to break because of how flat it is. So those ones are more pricey, but these ones work perfectly fine. So you can get these ones or those ones. Just make sure it has something you can, you know, remove, like a ball head tip like this that's grabbable. You can either choose to get a magnet or you can choose to get this tomato ball, which I'm sure you've seen almost everywhere. Magnet, tomato ball, anything works. I prefer this one because that's the first thing I bought when I started fashion school, and I'm still using it to today. It usually comes with like a pepper part here that you can use to sharpen your pins. Mine's, you know, nowhere to be found, but still works perfectly fine. If you want to use a magnet, go for it. I've used a magnet before and it's lovely. Some people have wristbands that's basically this but on a wristband, or a magnet on a wristband. Anything that works for you, but just make sure you're getting one. Don't get all of them because you're not going to use all of them. So just get one, this or magnets in a wristband form, in, you know, tabletop form, anything you want to do, but you're getting a tomato or a magnet, and it's going to help you save your pins, so that way your pins are not loose everywhere, because you hate to step on the pin, trust me. So now the next tool I'm going to talk about is this. I only use this when I'm working with patterns, and there are two different types of this one. This one is a dull one. It's like it can't cut you, but there's another one I have that literally looks like spikes. That one can get into your skin. So the reason I prefer this to that one is because with this one you cannot actually hurt your table. You can see I'm going on the table with this and it's not doing anything to the table. With that one, it's going to have holes in the table. So if you're using this one, fine and good. But if you're using that one, you have to buy a cotton mat, which I refuse to do because, again, I do not see the point. Hence this one does the work perfectly fine. So it's called a tracing wheel, and it's used to transfer patterns basically. So if I want to transfer a line from this paper to this paper, I'm just going to like roll this on the line to transfer it. As we go through this, you guys are going to see exactly what I mean. As a matter of fact, you don't need to buy this just yet till we start working with patterns. You can escape using this if you don't want to. Just for now, you don't need to buy it till we start working with patterns, because it's going to be a while before we start working on patterns. So that's a tracing wheel. Now the next thing is this. I don't know if I should advise you to buy this or not. Personally, I almost never use this. I only bought this because it was a requirement in sewing class. But then I know not everybody is artistic. I'm not either. Not everybody can draw curves perfectly. I can't either, but I still don't use it. This is used, it's called a French curve. It's used to draw curves, to draw armhole curves, to draw neck curves, basically to draw curves. That's what it's used for. But you can freehand it. Personally, I have this, but I still freehand the curves. It's literally just an arc. Simple. So if you want to buy this, go for it. I think this is French curve 16, I believe. But if you think you can draw curves with your hands perfectly fine, go for it, because if not, then this is useless. I've had this for about 3 years, and I maybe have used it like 6 times, and I don't know why I used it. Maybe I was feeling fancy that day, but I really don't use this. This is a tailor's chalk. A tailor's chalk is used to make markings on the fabric or on a pattern that you're working with. So I prefer to use this for fabrics. On patterns, I use a pen or a marker or something that's more visible. So I prefer these ones because, as you can see, they are very thin. So that way it's always sharp and you can easily mark with them. If you want to like get the traditional chalk that's like fat, you can, but I prefer to work with this. I got this pack from Amazon at a pretty reasonable price, and it's been lasting me very long. Also, when these break, it's really easy to, like, you know, just still use it because of how thin it is. So it always feels like it's new even after I've used it for a very long time. So tailor's chalk, you need a tailor's chalk or a marking pen, but chalks work better because they wipe out more easily. You don't want to use a pen and then it stays on the fabric and doesn't leave. As you're learning to sew, you may use any fabric you want, but my advice, what I started with everywhere I learned to sew, is use a cotton fabric. I think this is called calico, or any cotton fabric. Cotton fabrics are like the cheapest. You can find them at Walmart, Joann's, Hobby Lobby for a very cheap price. Start with a cotton fabric, so that way you're not wasting your money on fabric. Now, if you know that, okay, I got a hang of this thing, you can go ahead and use any fabric you want, but I would say start with cotton because it's the cheapest and the easiest to work with. It works perfectly fine with any sewing machine if it's cotton. So get calico like this, or regular cotton fabric from the stores. I think I got this from Amazon. It was like a whole 25 yards, I believe. I got it when I stayed fashion school in Houston here, and I still have it because I barely finished it. you know, I'm not actually learning, so I don't actually use it like that. But when I'm not sure, when I'm in doubt, I always sew it here first before I actually sew the main clothes. So since you're practicing, I'll say make almost everything using this first, maybe for the first 2 times before you actually sew on a piece of fabric. So that brings us to the end of this video. Let me know, did you like lesson 1? Was it helpful? Do you think there is more tools I'm missing? Or personally, in your experience, are there more tools you need that you think everybody should actually use? Trust me, I would love to learn. I'm sure everybody else who's watching would love to learn. So let us know in the comment section what you think, if there is more tools, how you felt about this video. And I'll see you guys on lesson 2, which is going to be how to use a sewing machine. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on my next one.